This is not about restricting people's rights. This is about giving more rights to those who've taken steps to protect themselves. We shouldn't disagree on the fundamental premise that we want to keep our neighbors safe, and we have an ability to do that by taking an individual action for a collective benefit.
Over the course of the last year and a half, principles of what a free society means are being redefined by collectivists. In the essay, "Don't COVID vaccine mandates actually promote freedom?" medical ethicists Kyle Ferguson and Arthur Kaplan argue those who oppose cracking down on the unvaccinated are getting it all wrong. Ferguson and Kaplan are sure their opponents have a flawed view of freedom. They argue passports and mandates are hardly strong-arm tactics. These strategies are better seen as liberty inducers. They bring about freedom rather than deplete it.
What about the rights of the unvaccinated, Art?
Well, they do have rights. They have a right to be quarantined. They have a right to be isolated. They have a right to be told you can't come in here because you're not vaccinated. They have a right not to travel.
Orwell's party proclaimed in 1984 that freedom is slavery. Ferguson and Kaplan come close to arguing slavery is freedom. Ferguson and Kaplan assure us that the Enlightenment view of the unbound individual is outdated. Here, freedom is communal rather than individualistic. And rather than being unbound, individuals in the free community are bound by and to each other. Communal freedom achieves much more than the unbound individual ever could. It creates new possibilities and expands our horizons. Life is enhanced when our community is free, because we can participate in communal freedom and the goods it creates. This view of freedom is like that of Rousseau's. A society is made free by individuals cooperating, by binding themselves to each other and to the rational pursuit of common goals. From this perspective, vaccine mandates and other strong-arm tactics induce liberty rather than restrict it. Pulitzer Prize-winning historian James McGregor Burns recounts in his book Fire and Light how Rousseau's ideas of the general will led to the brutality of his disciple Robespierre. Burns explains that there can be no agreement about what the common good is. Claiming to rule by the common good inevitably leads to excesses. Robespierre and the other 11 men who made up the Committee of Public Safety ruled France with unlimited power and terror. Burns explains what Rousseau did not understand. Peaceful and democratic conflict is crucial to the achievement of freedom. Instead, Rousseau imagined, like Ferguson and Kaplan, a new society filled with good citizens, working selflessly and with identical minds for the common good. Rousseau's ideas are mantras for censors. In Rousseau's world, there would be no pesky long debates, dissensions, and tumult, impeding implementation of the common good. Dr. Fauci is sure he's right, and he has had enough of those making different choices than his guidance.
I know I respect people's freedom, but when you're talking about a public health crisis that we've been going through now for well over a year and a half, the time has come. Enough is enough. We've just got to get people vaccinated.
Let's not hide Fauci's plain meaning. I respect people's freedom to do what I tell them. You are to take all the vaccines Dr. Fauci and Pfizer deem necessary. They, not you, will decide the parameters of your freedom, with Ferguson and Kaplan cheering them on. Rest easy, like Robespierre, the fallible decisions of Dr. Fauci, politicians, bureaucrats, and cronies are for the common good. With freedom redefined, there will be no need to take personal responsibility for your health decisions. Those who don't go along with official guidance must be dealt with. Ban them from travel, from schools, and from employment. In Ferguson and Kaplan's Rousseauian view, society is merely expunging those that won't take a knee to whatever is proclaimed the common good. Burns explains that leaders operating from the common good mindset have the absolute conviction that they are right.
Science tells us that the best way through this pandemic is to get vaccinated. That's how we end this. That's how we get back to normality that so many people so desperately want. So we have to stand strong for what we know to be true. That science is going to help us through this, is going to be the path forward out of this. But we have to make sure we are hearing those real concerns and responding to them as best we can.
Burns explores the French Revolution as he recounts the totalitarian tyranny of the Jacobins. The Jacobins believed only they understood the general will of the French people, hence they were morally right. Opposition was considered not merely mistaken, but evil and traitorous, and hence punishable, even lethally. The Jacobins asserted a monopoly on virtue, which meant to them a license to kill those who held up other values. Today, health Jacobins don't agree that they should kill the unvaccinated, but some argue that the unvaccinated should be deprived of health care.
The number of new cases is up more than 300% from a year ago. Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
In his seminal essay, Individualism, True and False, Hayek contrasts true individualism and the false individualism of philosophers such as Rousseau. True individualism is a product of an acute consciousness of the limitations of the individual mind, which induces an attitude of humility towards the impersonal and anonymous social processes by which individuals help to create things greater than they know. In contrast, false individualism is the product of an exaggerated belief in the powers of individual reason and of a consequent contempt for anything which has not been consciously designed by it or is not fully intelligible to it. When Ferguson and Kaplan write, freedom is communal rather than individualistic, they, in Hayek's words, express the silliest of the common misunderstandings. The adoption of such ideas, Hayek explains, has been a source of modern socialism. The error made by the collectivist apologists is the belief that individualism postulates or bases its arguments on the assumption of the existence of isolated or self-contained individuals, instead of starting from men whose whole nature and character is determined by their existence in society. This false individualism of Rousseau and others assumes that everything which man achieves is the direct result of, and therefore subject to, the control of individual reason. Masquerading as people who reason the best, Ferguson and Kaplan, in Hayek's words, pretend to be able directly to comprehend social wholes like society. Hayek's explanation of true individualism is the antidote for such hubris. Hayek's approach is anti-rationalistic and regards man not as a highly rational and intelligent, but as a very irrational and fallible being, whose individual errors are corrected only in the course of a social process, and which aims at making the best of a very imperfect material. We can never make the best of imperfect material when those posing as having superior knowledge are allowed to coerce others. Hayek writes, "What individualism teaches us is that society is greater than the individual only insofar as it is free. Insofar as it is controlled or directed, it is limited to the powers of the individual minds which control or direct it." Health collectivists, behaving like Jacobins, are sure there is only one best way. They believe they are the arbiter of truth. Cloaking themselves in the holy robes of the augur of the common good, dissent is not to be tolerated.
We have the tools. Now we just have to finish the job with truth, with science, with confidence, and together as one nation. Look, we're the United States of America. There's nothing, not a single thing we're unable to do if we do it together. So let's stay together. God bless you all and all those who continue to serve on the front lines of this pandemic. And may God protect our troops. Get vaccinated.
The end to the pandemic requires not that we follow the collectivists, but that we are free to consider different perspectives and discover, in the course of an uncoerced social process, what really works.